Record. Yeah, we don't like your voice. I have it turned off.
There's
We're recording right now, so just FYI. If you want to speak up, go ahead. It just will be
there's
recorded.
a really interesting point made about how blood vessels may have an easier time moving through our body. In this presentation, Gerald Pollack gives called the fourth phase of water. He just points out all of these different characteristics of water that show it has this electric and mechanical nature to it.
The vortex.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about water is it's the solvent of everything.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they call it the mother in a lot of the old traditions. So good, we're recording. We're back to the caffeines. We had a break in the video because of internet now. So if caffeine's leaving you cold and dry, what the audience missed that's recorded now is Ayurveda does us a favor with a phenomena called vipaka, vipaka. So there's an effect while food's being metabolized, and then there's a post-digestive effect after you've burned off everything and you're left with the ash after you've burned everything up, right? And so what's another example of an opposite post-digestive effect of food? What's a highly acid fruit when you eat it? Oranges and lemons, right? But what are they after you eat them? What are they viewed as? They're alkaline forming. What? They're so acidic. How's that? What? You can feel the acid going down. So how's it alkaline forming? Tell me, please, enlighten me.
Your body creates a lot of alkaline fluid to counteract the acid of the fruit.
It does do that, but that would also make you more acidic in the end. Yes, it would. Well, I love playing with this stuff because I was 25, 30 years ago, I was scratching my head going, how can they coexist? So what do you think? Do you know?
I don't know.
Oh, good. I got stumped the end.
Oh. That's not hard.
Well, you're pretty humble.
I'm stumped every day.
You're pretty humble. You're brilliant. Well, Deanna and I met at Standard Process seminars with men like Stuart White, who have, what does he do, $1 million a year in supplements and 6-month waiting list? And
He gets the supplements by the pallet twice a week.
it's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, this guy is like a teacher's teacher. You know, he's brilliant. But you know, his audience of 200 people at the Standard Process facility, people wouldn't, like, it was like, I don't know, maybe 10 of us would engage and talk out of 200.
Wow.
And I was always one of them, my hand going up every 5 minutes, you know, like, I'm paying good money and I want to learn with all these great people around me. What an opportunity. Sit in the corner and cower. Oh, I'm scared. Like, that used to be me, actually. So I'm a hypocrite. All right, back to out yourself stuff. So back to citrus. The rules of how they determine this in chemistry, I wish James was here, is they take the food in question and they burn it down to ash, and they put that ash in water and they measure the pH. So when you burn a lemon down to its ash, it has alkaline ashes. When you burn meat down to its ash is acidic. So as it goes in the body, then the process is the body has to produce alkaline mucus. So there's a test for cleansing that, anybody remember Richard Anderson, the Arise and Shine system? I still use his system somewhat. He got famous for the clay psyllium shakes and the chompers in his system. And he had a lot of cleansing, good stuff in his books. But so he has you, I think it's a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and you swish it around your mouth, sound effects not included. And then you spit it, you can go swallow it or spit it out. And you have 6 pH readers ready for you. You time it exactly a minute. And then if your saliva pH after a minute of doing lemons, which is extremely acidic, is not highly alkaline, like 7.4, then you can't cleanse. Why?
Because you don't have capacity to produce the needed enzymes and whatever to detox well enough. Yeah, that's a good question.
You're on the right track. The body has to mobilize alkaline mucus, so it has to mobilize polysaccharide or the mucopolysaccharides, which I call slime, which is why I use comfrey and marshmallow and slimy herb, because the slime is like That's the very basis of life, I think. It's yin. It's a
We
yin
all
tonic.
came from slime.
It all came from slime, you know, and so that's the basis of yin. That's how you make mucus. If you can't make mucus, you're dissolving your linings.
More pizza.
If
Yeah,
you
right.
can't make mucus, you're dissolving your linings. Think about if you eat popcorn and you can't make mucus, scrub, 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 all the way down. Popcorn's pretty gnarly if you think about it. You better have a pretty lot of mucus and a good gut lining, or that's just gonna carve away all the way down, you know. Banana seeds are like that, by the way. Banana seeds, the little black seeds are like razor sharp. And you really bite into them and chew on them. Blueberry seeds too, and kiwi seeds. And so generally berry seeds, you gotta be careful with colitis cases. Cut everything up. Okay, that's neither here nor there. So what the body does though is the body has to metabolize those acids. And so the cleansing test is asking yourself, can my body mobilize enough acids to buffer that lemon juice, which is about 3 pH, 3.5, 4. Not quite level of stomach acid, but pretty, you know, pretty strong. So your body has to mobilize alkaline mucus. So a lot of what when you see mucus, it'd be interesting to put a pH thing on it and see whether it's acid or alkaline mucus. You know.
Oh, wow.
Never thought of doing that until now, but yeah, maybe.
You mean your mucus?
You're on mucus, yeah, for sure. You're getting a cold and you got prolific mucus.
Yeah.
Well,
What's your guess?
wait, I got this, that little insight we got the other day. I was talking to Monica 15 minutes, so I got to mention it. So, you know, when you're, anybody ever had allergies or sneezing so bad where literally there's just liquid dripping out your nose? Everybody ever have that? You can't control it. It's just like, it's so irritating. You never had it? Oh, my whole life was this way. I was an allergy guy. Water would just drip. I was so bad when I was a beginning massage therapist. If I had an allergy attack, I'd have literally toilet paper in my nose because I dripped on a few clients. You know,
That's bad. That's very, very bad.
Massage oil.
Yeah, my skin's so soft, Craig. Mucopolysaccharides.
People actually buy snail slime for their skin, so you can sell it that way. If you pay money for snails, you should be really happy you took that Craig slime.
I heard, wasn't somebody doing semen also? Wasn't somebody putting semen like a great skin thing?
Oh.
I swear somebody was doing that.
Sounds like a movie.
Probably, yeah.
That's for the hair.
Yeah, that's Piccoli kind of stuff, probably. Was that American Pie? Was that funny movie where the sperm was on the, oh my God, that was great. Okay, so you kind of get it, and the body has to immobilize resources to upset the acids, and then when it does that, you're left with the alkaline ash. Because meat doesn't taste acidic at all. It tastes pretty plain Jane, right? But so most of your acidic foods actually aren't that acidic. But, I mean, it's like coffee, sugar, anything that's refined. So refined oils, refined sugar, refined flour, refined salt, refined proteins. That would be a good look up. Now, there's this whole thing about, there was this whole dogma around proteins when I was in college in the 90s about how protein causes osteoporosis. Eye rolling shit. And then I ran across Michael McAvoy 15 years ago, and he turned my world upside down. He said, guess what, Craig? In metabolism, if you don't have good protein metabolism, good enough proteins and amino acids are your body's ability to, it's the body's primary means of buffering pH, are the amino acids. So they cannot inherently be acidic then. In elemental theory, the chemistry of man, Bernard Jensen's book, The Chemistry of Man, he refers to nitrogen as the controlling element in the periodic table of the elements. He has little personalities for all the elements, controlling element. And what is it in the atmosphere, right? It's controlling all of the oxygen, right? What's our atmosphere? 70% nitrogen?
70% what?
Nitrogen in the atmosphere. It's a lot of nitrogen. That's what plants need to grow green. So guess what? I got plants out there now. I'm gonna do a video soon because there's some surprises, and vetch is a few of them. And are you familiar with vetch? It's a vine that has a beautiful little orchid-like flower, and it's growing. It grew out of the gynostemma pot. And it's growing up the trellis now, and it's one of my surprises because it's a nitrogen fixer. So
Was that those little white flowers I was finding?
no, that's a different plant. This is out in the backyard. I mean, there's only a couple of them, but I'm going to let them go to seed. I'm going to pick the seed pods and scatter them around the property, so it'll trellis up the fence next year. It's a nice surprise. What's another one people plant in the winter? well-known bean people plant for nitrogen. Beans are all nitrogen fixing, by the way.
Fava.
Fava, right? Yeah, one of my buddies, he would grow it, and he said, as soon as it flowers, that's when you can either let it fix the nitrogen, and for a couple of days, but you want to hack it before it goes to seed, and then dig it under, like hugelkultur. And another method is,
Make progeny
yeah, because it's
before it makes
some people are
progeny.
growing it just to replenish the topsoil and for nitrogen. They're not growing it for the product. Right. And I had a Japanese teacher that he was railing about this, the human use of soybeans in the United States. He said, you people in the United States are idiots. We don't grow soybeans to eat them. We grow them for cover crops. He's like, because I grew up with these snobs 30 years ago that I was making fresh tofu in 95, 96 at this Macrobiotic Institute. And they're so poo-poo about tofu over there. He's like, if it's more than a day old, they throw it out. And we eat tofu regularly that's 6, 7, 8 days old from the store. And it's sour. So, and all tofu is like cottage cheese. It's like soy milk cottage cheese. So it's not even fermented properly. So the nutrients that are supposed to be there aren't bioavailable, just like spinach I was telling you guys about. Okay, back to the subject at hand. So heat and dry. I don't know how much time we're going to spend on caffeine this week, but I wanted to introduce it in a public talk because no one's really questioning the paradigm. And so let's see, everybody's here now, present, except I guess Jean took the night off. It's okay. So caffeine, we talked about it earlier. Why do plants make it? So this is the recorded part. And we've agreed that plants are making it because it's a well-known insecticide. And it has other properties that, when you use it, why do you have a bowel movement after you use it? People use it for bowel movements. What's the negative of that? There's a negative to it.
It's your body trying to get rid of the caffeine as fast as possible.
That's right.
It's bad for you.
It's a poison. So your body's trying to get it out as fast as possible by opening the channels of elimination.
That's really such a rewrite. You think it's good that you're getting bowel movement, but it's really that your body's like, get it out, get it out.
And then in the end, when you keep kicking the tired horse, you end up constipated when you go off of it. Oh yeah. People use it for that. And I have clients that tell me they can't have a BM without it in the morning. Coffee specifically.
But I'd help them use water instead.
Water, and the night before, especially with dinner, you can take your bitters and then you can take something before bed, especially magnesium is a good place to start. Which is a good point about caffeine. I need to bring that in now is we've been talking about the magnesium burn rate through Morley Robbins and his root cause protocol work. Are you oh man.
They love that. Sounds great. Yeah.
Because he's backed in science. He's proving everything he's claiming, so I'm like, this guy's the bomb. And he's just Morley, you're a god. Thank you for what you're doing. I might even join his next practitioner group, but it's a big commitment. And I told them, I said, I'd rather be just doing tutoring with you guys, but they really want me to sign up. And, I don't want to be in another health group when I'm leading one already. That's why I told them, I go, can't we just collaborate?
Yeah.
But I'm just because this retinol vitamin D ratio, I gotta get that answers on that because I'm starting to use it with lab work. Because he's talking about the way to verify whether someone truly is vitamin D off, if you want to have it in a ratio to vitamin A. And he says you want 10 parts retinol for every 1 part D. And I just did a client, the first one I did, and they don't come out in the labs, of course, are the same lab parameter. One's picograms per milliliter and one's micrograms per deciliter. And you go, so I got my conversion charts like this fucking long now, like, let's see, how do you convert those two? And it ended up being like, ended up being like 25 to 1. So I'm like, oh, you're good. Do you want it 10 or higher? That means, so I'm going to lead a practitioner webinar on this because all the COVID recommendations are actually fucking up the body's ability to use oxygen and iron. Zinc without copper, bad. Ascorbic acid chelates copper. Copper is the main control element in the proteins that help the body use oxygen. And vitamin D3 offsets copper metabolism. Ascorbic acid does, zinc does, hydrochloroquine does. And it just makes me wonder like how deep the psyop goes. because I've got the alternative people, including myself, was brainwashed until just recently. And I got been studying Morley's work, and I'm like, Morley is just one of those true rebels, and he's just been. There are people talking about this. So remember I was talking about vitamin F last week?
Yeah.
I went back into the Saline River Press, went to the vitamin F1 and F2 article. Turns out vitamin F was pronounced a vitamin in 1934 by the Journal of Biochemistry. That didn't make any press, did it?
No.
But they couldn't synthesize it. They couldn't synthesize it in a lab, so therefore they deemed it a, mainstream. They never released any of that information. Yeah, the Journal of Biochemistry. The link that that was in the nutrition group, wasn't it, Monica?
Yes.
Okay, I could give the link to the group if anybody wants to look at it. It's just fascinating. It's about vitamin F and how it's anti-cancer. And
Yeah, well, isn't it the vitamin D puts the calcium into the bloodstream, and then the F puts it from the bloodstream into the tissues.
Yeah.
So without F,
you're screwed.
yeah.
Which is why cod liver oil has the A and the D and the F and the K1, K2 ratio, because the Wolzen factor.
K2 brings the oxygen in too.
Exactly. So we're talking about actions, right? The action of D is get it out of the gut and get it into the blood, get the minerals. It's not just calcium, it's just mobilize resources and get it into the blood. But then there's no one in the bloodstream saying, hey, put it over there. And part of that's chewing. This is where my macrobiotic studies come in. The more you chew, the salivary enzymes get in there, and one of their uses is to identify where to put the food. So if you chew too quickly, then you don't have the markers of where to put the food. That's fascinating.
So it's part of the processing.
Right, it's part of the process.
How we assimilate.
You could biochemically say, you want to chew your carbohydrates well, especially your starches, because amylase starts the process of breaking down the starch to the simple sugars. Because all starch is a long chain of glucose molecules bonded together. And so your mouth has the enzyme to start cleaving those. And, to hands on that, if anybody has any of the old saltines that are unsalted, we did this in biology class in 8th grade before I knew anything. The teacher was really cool. She wanted a hands-on experience. I was in 9th grade. And she was chewing on these saltines, and she said, don't swallow it. So the goal was she had a timer for like 10 minutes, and we're chewing on these things. And sure enough, after 10 minutes, the saltine turned sweet in my mouth.
Oh, wow. What happened in the mouth?
Because if you leave it in there long enough, the enzymes start to break it down. And brown rice does the same thing. Rice does the same thing. I've done it with rice too.
Wow.
Yeah, really freshly whole brown rice. None of us, I don't think, have freshly whole brown rice.
It won't if it's fresh.
It will, more likely to. When I was in New England, they had literally, the macrobiotics are such snobs. We would hull our rice fresh every day. We had a rice hulling machine. So, okay, we're going to hull the rice for the day. And they put the rice hulls out in the garden, of course. But we get rice already pre-hulled, and so it's oxidized to some degree, which means the flavor won't be as good as it would be freshly hulled. Okay, back to caffeine. I don't know, we got kind of off there, didn't we? So caffeine, if it's drying, then the long-term use of it is that we have these pockets of moisture that start to dry out. And caffeine also, it stimulates the central nervous system. So I think that it does that because if animals eat it, then they freak out and they never want to go back to that plant because they identify the feeling they had of being all shaky and jittery and peeing and pooping everywhere to that plant. And then the deer goes, fuck that, I'm never going over that plant again, because they associate the bad feelings with the plant. And I mean, what humans have had, we live in an inversion here. So we had it inverted against us. Oh, you'll be more, let's tell the serfs that it'll be good for them and it'll make them more productive and it'll build our infrastructure, that we want to build. And then we'll finally wipe them all out when the infrastructure is built, which is kind of where we're at. And so they tricked the serfs to use caffeine, and they did the propaganda on it, just like they did with cigarettes, didn't they?
Who's there?
The banking cartel running the world.
Was it like one particular country? And do you know like the origin of when this, or was it kind of like everywhere that they started doing this?
I don't know. This goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. Think about it. We were using, I know where it is. It's in Dale Pendel's book called Pharmacopoeia. I have that data in his book. He goes back and does a big study of coffee and tea and where its origins are in history. So we could actually do that. It's a great place to start with caffeine, actually. So probably, I would guess, how long have they been using tea in India, for example? Oh my God. thousands of years. So somewhere, I mean, I don't want to doubt that our ancestors were pretty wise. And so I think that they probably used caffeine as like, I met this guy at a Pioneers conference. He was chewing on coca leaves while he was talking. He was from Ecuador. And he was, you know, he was a worker. And I went to him afterwards and I said, hey, do you guys don't use refined cocaine, right? He goes, no, we just chew on the leaves and it keeps us working all day and, you know, fit and active. But he was very thin. And I said, but you're not eating. And he's like, yeah, that's the downside. We're not eating until morning and night we'll eat, but we'll just chew on the coca leaves all day.
Downside because he couldn't, do you think?
Why do people use, why do women especially use caffeine? Appetite suppressant. Because when the saber-toothed tiger is changing you, you're not worried about having a meal. Fight or flight's about run like hell, get those muscles mobilized. So yeah, I mean, I'm not against the use of what I call edge walking. You know, caffeine's an edge, and if you can metabolize it. So it turns out one of the remedies for caffeine is niacin. And that goes back to the work of an old chiropractor who was studying schizophrenia. And he is able to isolate that schizophrenia was the partial breakdown of the adrenal hormone, stress hormones, and it was a form of some negative form of adrenochrome in a way, and in a negative way. And so it doesn't get metabolized by the liver. Some people have these enzyme defects in the liver, and so the caffeine doesn't get broken down as fast as others. And hence, some people, you know, like if I don't have a cup of coffee for 2 months and I have a cup, I'm buzzing for 8 to 10 hours. Versus my brother could have a cup and go to bed in an hour. It doesn't affect him that profoundly. So in that, then niacin, it turns out, helps the liver. It's one of the intermediary steps that gets the enzyme, it gets that step sort of stimulated. And so I messed around with the standard process product called Orchex. Not niacin B6, that's a little too hot for me. But the Orchex, they call that product in the clinical reference guide for that company, quote, when you feel like well, it's paraphrased. When you feel like there's a pressure cooker inside and you just can't release the tension and the anger, this is the #1 sedative they have. And guess what the first ingredient of this product is? Do you know?
Of Orchex?
Yeah, the first ingredient of Orchex.
It's a bovine product, right?
Yes, it is. It's a cow part.
Yeah, is it the prostate gland?
Oh, that's close. No. So the first ingredient of Orchex, so I'm a formulator myself. So I'm looking at this formula, I'm like, first ingredient, cow testicle cytoplasm extract. They call it cytosol. And I scratched my head and I go, now how in any way is that a sedative? What? And you do it after you have caffeine? Like what? Wow.
Well, as we laughed, cow testicle, you don't want to call it a bull.
Oh, bull testicle.
Because cows don't have testicles.
That's
Great,
right.
great point. Great point. That's a woman with balls.
That ain't no woman.
They've been cut off.
That's that serious Kali Ma energy right there. Jeez.
Which is sometimes quite needed, but not a good.
Oh yeah, that's definitely needed in the world now, more than ever. We need like women with swords running around. Oh my God. So it turns out, this is back to the vitamin E, vitamin F discussion. It turns out that they used to give vitamin E, and there's a form called E2 that Royal Lee isolated, and they would give it to someone, and these Orchex, this testicle extract is in all the standard process vitamin E compounds, cataplex E, E2, even ochrapepsin E3. So Royal Lee found 3 forms of vitamin E and 2 forms of vitamin F, and they're all related, they're in the fat. So when you take vitamin E, it turns out your body can function on less oxygen. It makes it more efficient, apparently. So we use cataplex E2 for the heart patient that's about to die of a heart attack. You give them 4 or 5 every 15, 20 minutes, and you can keep them alive until they go to the hospital. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
I always have a bottle of cataplex E2 around for that reason, because you can keep someone from the EpiPen for a while.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. It's a good emergency product to have around because it's in Cardio Plus, so it opens everything up. Cataplex E is a little bit more contractive, and this one opens everything up. As a formulator, that's why I love this product line.
Yeah.
They have the dualistic for everything. So
So would that take the place of nitro pills? for somebody who?
Well, remember I gave you Orchex.
I know you did.
So I have an asthmatic in LA that's she's very high strung reactive. And so I give her the Orchex and she has to work out to get her tension out. And she swears that she doesn't have any muscle cramps or breathing problems as long as she takes Orchex and she works out. And then we gave her Cataplex F before and after. So Jay and I are going to experiment because I don't think the nitrous oxide is the answer. I think it's the pathway of nitric oxide we want to talk about, but not taking arginine, for example.
Well,
I have this
no,
big old
I was
bag of
asking-
L-arginine, you know.
I was asking that question for somebody who actually has nitro in case of a heart attack.
And you could have the Cataplex E2 as your first trial. Like I tell my asthmatics, keep your asthma medicine, but start off with peppermint oil and breathing and, you know, better lung herbs and mullein and then, you know, keep your medication around for your peace of mind, for God's sakes. We don't want you to, you know, if you need it, please have it, you know. I am not anti-medication for emergency, you know, rescue uses at all. It's just a matter of it's being overused. And, you know, like, so has anybody ever taken like a pure caffeine drink, like the Red Bulls or the Monsters or Coca-Cola used to have a little bit of it in there. If you drank Pepsi or Coke, there was synthetic caffeine added to
Well,
it.
now they have waters that are hooked up with caffeine.
They do?
They do
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
The bar back in the
Yeah. I was-
2000s.
Caffeine water?
Yeah.
Oh, you're
caffeinated
killing
water.
me.
Yeah. Caffeinated flavored water.
So I'm going to tell you why you never want to do an energy drink, because I have a few clients that have done them long term. So, you know, the 5 Hour Energy, they had a whole marketing campaign, and there was, you know, there were the guys who did good stuff with the money and da, 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 and I guess he's from India, and they're like, oh, great. So the thing is, they say, oh, you got your taurine and your caffeine, and then you got the B vitamins in there to help you with digest. But guess what kind of B vitamins are in 5 Hour Energy? Coal mining waste refined B vitamins.
Are they from China?
Probably. China burns a lot of coal, don't they?
Probably.
A lot of waste. Some, you know, hey, I'll buy your waste, buddy. We'll put it in vitamins and tell the stupid people that it's good for them. Just like the fluoride, you know, aluminum waste, I think, when they mine aluminum. Oh yeah, they're all in bed together, selling each other's waste. What do you think geoengineering is?
And we've been
That's coal
sending-
mining waste also.
We've been sending all our waste over to China, right? They won't take it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get me started on that topic. So it kind of goes back to caffeine, is that these caffeine can definitely increase tension. It burns up the log, which is yin, right? And so once your log burns down, there's no more fire. So one of the main causes actually in America of low energy and low motivation is you burn down your log too much, too long, because you weren't taught the rules of life. Which is why I'm teaching that natural law class now. It's just the basic theme of that class is learning the laws of the universe. So I spent my whole life studying. And once you understand the actions of life, then you're going to suffer a lot less. I mean, if you're smart and apply them, you could be like me and still walk the edge, you know, suffer a bit. But I'm here for a different reason than most of you are. I'm here to be a test tube of what humans can do. And that means a lot of pain and joy. This is telling a friend, how you doing today? I'm like, imagine a mountain full of pain and a mountain full of joy and homicidal and suicidal thoughts and beatific thoughts, and it's all in me every day, all day. Welcome to my freak show. There was a couple other stimulants. Rosemary can be a stimulant. Yeah, rosemary, but rosemary is another interesting plant. I call rosemary an adaptogen. Why would I do that? Why would I call rosemary an adaptogen? Why would Craig do that? Must be a reason why. Craig's kind of smart sometimes. So why would I say that about rosemary?
Well, we have to first fully define adaptogen for everybody in the room. I need to hear again. What's
Okay.
an adaptogen?
So the simple definition of adaptogen is it's Lego building blocks of all sorts of things and actions and chemistries that the body will choose what it wants to do with. Real simple way. So think of it as a full menu of a buffet, and the body can take what it wants from the buffet, both stimulating and relaxing qualities. Yarrow has that same thing. Christopher Hobbs used to say yarrow has every single phytochemical in it. And I looked at the list, and it's got everything. Eugenol, I mean, everything's in yarrow. So if you wanted to isolate, you know, chemistry compounds from a plant, all you need to do is grow yarrow. You could isolate it all from that. But rosemary is similar, is my point. The famous compound eugenol is in all those Italian herbs and cloves and whatnot. And it's a good killer, bugs too. So yeah, rosemary has, it has both blood moving qualities and a little bit of sedative properties and a little bit of stimulating properties. How can it be a stimulant and a sedative? Like, what the hell is going on with this plant? So I believe that's, and the story that backs this up was, it's such a romantic story. The ladies will love it. So there was the queen of, was it Prussia or Poland, I don't know which. Didn't Prussia become Poland? Does that help?
That sounds right.
Prussia was before Poland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the queen of Prussia had fallen in love with, she was like 45, 50. Oh no, that was a while ago. This was like 400 or 500 years ago. So she must have been 30 or 35 because you were kind of washed up back then at 30 or 35, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was probably 30 or 35. Oh, she was washed up, you know, probably still beautiful and gorgeous. But so she had fallen in love with the young king. He was like 20, 25, and he was the next kingdom over. It might have been Austria or something, as the story goes. This is a Stuart White story, I think. And so she couldn't figure out how she's gonna make this guy fall in love with her. So her magician, herbalist, shaman guy said, hey, we're gonna do rosemary. We're gonna bathe you in rosemary. We're gonna wash your hair with rosemary. We're gonna do rosemary internally. They might have done rosemary enemas, I don't know. Rosemary in the ears, they just rosemary everywhere for a couple of years. And as the legend goes, she got younger by using rosemary properly and seduced the young king of the other kingdom and merged their kingdoms and lived happily ever after. Yeah, I love the older woman falling in love with the younger man and chasing him down and marrying him. I think that's so cool.
Rosemary,
All because of rosemary.
Try rosemary.
Rosemary enemas tomorrow.
It's
rosemary. In horticulture, rosemary is one of the deer-resistant plants.
Yeah.
And doesn't get eaten by gophers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
What's it mean if you don't like something?
There's two reasons. Like often my pitta fire types, they love hot spices. They almost always goes together. And so they're craving what's actually the worst thing for them. And it really depends. Like something you're not drawn to often, it's good. You don't want, your body doesn't want it, but sometimes you're not drawn to it because it's going to initiate a detoxification from the body. And for whatever reason, we're not ready to be unlayered yet. A lot of herbs are like that. Like I was, if I was going to graduate from Michael Tierra's herb school, I had to try literally 300 herbs. So over the course of 3 to 4 years, I tried over 300 herbs and I had diarrhea 250 times probably. No joke. Serious suffering on some of them.
Did you keep a journal of like what each thing affected you?
I did the things I was journaling. The thing was is like I have so many things I'm trying to track and document that was one that I was like, I can't. It's too much. But a lot of the herbs, like I'm using Sweet Annie, which is an Artemisia right now. That's as Robert. No, there's a book called Herbal Antibiotics written by Stephen Herod Buhner. And Buhner's he's a Lyme case. So he has a book on healing Lyme too. He has some great insights on Lyme. And so Sweet Annie is identified as one of the strongest herbal antibiotics out there on a number of gram-positive and negative bacteria. So I'm looking at this and I'm using the artemisinin complex. And I'm taking 2 a day right now, full tablets as a bitter before meals. And
But only for 4 days, and then you're going off for a week.
I've used it every day for the whole bottle.
But your liver gets smart, will conjugate it and clear it out after 4 days.
Ah, fuck.
You gotta take a break.
Damn it.
Take a break.
Well, my point was 25 years ago, if I would have taken this herb, I would have been liquefied bowels all day, every day. And hasn't changed my bowels at all. But so what I gauge my whole bowel health in is, this is sort of an out, and it's sort of gross, but I call it the lower end itchy factor. So it gets a little itchy down there and I know I got trouble, right? And as soon as I started the Sweet Annie Artemisinin complex, within 2 days it was gone, and it's not come back until last night when I had tomato sauce on chickpea pasta too late at 11 o'clock last night. And I woke up this morning with that itch and I went, what's the thing I did different? I haven't had tomatoes in 6 months, and I never have chickpeas, let alone a stale chickpea flour. You know, it's fresh. And so I didn't digest all of it, and the bugs had a party, and their poop was causing me itch. Bug poop itch. You gotta love talking to Craig, right? They just tell you right how it is. It's your bug poop itch. Oh, we can probably wind this down earlier tonight. Oh, the 300 herbs, that's right. So you guys, it's a matter of, the liver is kind of the central unit of all of this. So that's why you really want to honor your liver, love your liver, smile at your liver, tell it it's right here into the rib cage here, send it great thoughts all day, because it's doing the most work of any organ in the body, probably. Oh, the stimulants, that's right. So what would it be a depressant then? Like a alcohol. But alcohol increases heat in the liver. No, well, sugar's an acidifier, so we didn't talk about stimulants like Adderall either. There's those medical stimulants. There's like Adderall and caffeine, and I guess I could go into the database and see what the other ones are. So a depressant then is we're talking about actions. So a depressant then, there's not too many great like herbal sedatives that I find. If you're used to like drugs on either side of here, it's really tough to get the herb to work. But one of my personal favorite sedative herbs is hops. People think skullcap is a sedative, but it's not. Skullcap is really, it shines for people that have sensory overload, light and sound overload, and it's nerve food. It's nutrition from the nervous system, is skullcap. And skullcap is technically in the mint family, which is fascinating, but it doesn't necessarily have digestive properties, but it is a mint.
So would it help people who have tinnitus? Does it sound?
No, but because tinnitus usually takes years and years and years to develop. So once you realize it's there, oftentimes it's going to require some serious work. I got a round of it with a round of floaters in the eyes, really bad, in the middle of the day when it was at its worst. And then I had my follow-up labs done last week. Finally got them all done, after the high LDL, HDL debacle. And that didn't change, but I was able to see this time my major minerals had all fallen, including chloride, but everything was low. Sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium were all down. And what was the common link? Craig was doing a lot of enemas. And I realized like a lot of the problems I was having with the LDL was probably elevated because I was dehydrated. And so I've been putting salt and lemon in all my water now, like generous amounts of the flower of the ocean, Celtic salt and lemon. And I'm going to check my labs again in a month, but I already feel better. And that's where it ties in with the magnesium burn rate back to the caffeine, is that caffeine speeds up your magnesium burn rate because magnesium is involved in every single reaction with ATP. So the faster you're moving along, then the more you're going to burn magnesium. And so what I did with my experiment then, because of Morley, I finally jumped in and went to magnesium when I go wake up, magnesium with each meal, magnesium before bed. So I'm taking magnesium like 5 times a day now. I got up to about 900 milligrams. No citrate form. A citrate avoid like the plague, because it offsets the oxygen metabolism and the copper metabolism again. And so I had liquid bowels for 2 or 3 days, but my body said keep going. And what it did was it cleared out all this stuff. And then I've had 90% less muscle cramps, much better mood, better sleep. And then I got so cocky after 4 weeks on this great magnesium protocol, I had 4 straight days of coffee. And the first day was like a godsend, and then diminishing returns. 4th day, within 5 minutes of drinking it, all my aches and pains were back. And then I knew, like, I was waiting for that to come. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get away with this for a few days. Great, I'll have another cup of poison, And then 4th day, kicked my ass, and that was about 5 or 6 days ago. And so my body cleared it out after, I didn't use any Orchex, but sometimes I do. And it cleared it out after 48 hours. And then I feel normal and grounded again. And I went back to the salt because the labs came back, and I was like, what the labs are really telling me is I got cocky on magnesium, and I was on my 2nd day on coffee, I think. I was fasting, of course, but the day before I had a cup of coffee before these labs. So all the labs are really telling me is how well my body was doing on caffeine, which isn't good. So you can use like, we have a classic in America, right? You have the liftoff rocket, caffeine, then you have the alcohol and the depressant in the evening. So it's a formula for avoidance is what it is.
That nucleus of pain.
That we were talking about in natural law, that's right. The avoidance of coming to the place of facing that and sitting with it and stewing in it. And it's fine, like I said, I'm God Craiging and you're God Willing and you're God Monarchy and this is God being a planet. And you're God being Katie and, it's just God doing his thing. Can't judge another God out there. We're all co-creators. So I still judge them. So, doubt myself. I still judge. I just have to remember what Adyashanti said is, the clear light of perception and awareness, everything's great. And so if you can see, if you don't believe your own opinions, if you don't believe your own judgments, if you don't believe your own thoughts, that's a great place to be. Because then you can have fun with it. Because you're free.
What if you have discernment with your thoughts as opposed to judgment? Isn't that kind of getting to that neutral place?
We're saying the same thing. Yeah, we're saying the same thing. Discernment arises out of clarity.
Right.
Judgment arises out of being stuck in the mire.
Right.
And judgment's fine. You can have a judgment. It's fine to have judgments. Just don't believe them and act on them.
Right.
Try to recognize them.
Right. I mean, I started a men's group just identifying, sitting in men's group and going into sweat lodges. And what are you trying to release? That was Craig 5-10 years ago. I want to release judgments, and really helpful. And say it in a group, really helpful.
Yeah.
Because caffeine causes stimulation, which Stuart White had the 3 I's. Acidity is irritation. Remember that? You there in that? Yeah, caffeine causes acidity, which causes irritation. He had the 3 I's of fucking acidity. I can't remember now. It was from the 7 Pillars of Health conversation on the pH pillar. You remember all that?
Not that particular one, no.
I was so into the 7 Pillars of Health. His 7 Pillars of Health became my 4 foundations because I was like, 7's too many.
Right.
It's conceptually flawed, I believe, for the public, great for practitioners, but that's why I built. Anybody can understand if you don't have a strong foundation, you're screwed. And that's why I came up with drainage, detox, digestion, and the chooser, which determines your blood sugar. That's understandable for anybody. It's taken me a while to be able to talk about it and make people understand. But we all understand now that your ability to choose determines your ability to be clear. So if you're consistently choosing stuff that's bad for you because you deserve comfort food, then the byproduct of that karmically is going to be your lack of clarity for the next decision, next state. And so it perpetuates over and over again.
What's the difference between a depressant and a relaxant?
That's a good question. So in herbal medicine, there's a sedative, and then there's another one. It's like an herbal nutritive, but I forgot the name of it. Well, there's a fancy name for it somewhere, but I'm not getting it right now. But yeah, there is a different category. So you can think of one as like valerian's qualities. It's in the level 2 herb category. So it's something you don't want to take every day. But it's not necessarily sedating. It's sedating because it's a crazy muscle relaxant. It's where Valium comes from. Valium. So that's where they isolated Valium. And so my experience on valerian is it's only for people that it has a vascular thing where it sends blood up to the brain. It has a quality of helping thinking, but in people that run hot with liver heat, it causes them to have relaxed muscles, but their mind goes crazy. And so my only experience on valerian was I was in bed all night, couldn't move because I was so muscle relaxed, and my brain was driving me crazy.
Wow.
Not a formula for a good night's sleep.
Bee edibles are pretty good.
Right,
Which is interesting because valerian is in a lot of sleep formulas.
right. So there's a person that valerian's good for, and you just need to try it. So the people that valerian isn't good for, we get them over to skullcap. Yeah, if it doesn't, then it's not your plant.
I love poppy.
Now, poppy is narcotic.
It's like California poppy.
California poppy's specific action, its best action is for what we call generalized anxiety. So it's great for that. And then I've got my We didn't walk out there today. I was gonna walk you guys out there and
Yeah,
show you,
right.
but I'm gonna do a video. I have one poppy that popped up and then it shed its leaves and now it's the head on the same plant. The next day, another one popped up and there's one waiting behind that. And so what happens when I plant these poppies is they work it out amongst themselves. There's the first king that comes up, or the queen, and then all the subjects come up afterwards. And so
And they play
I'm watching the garden where they're all coming up in the ground and it's like they're communicating, like, I'm gonna go now, it's my turn next. And
chess.
it's really fun. The first bees were in the one today, so the message has gotten out. The first flower, no bees were in. It's generally that way. The pheromones go out in the environment, and then they're all out there about, half a mile going, what's that? So there was a bee flopping around today in the flower.
Inside the petal.
Well, I did saw it from the side, and I saw it trying to fly out, and then it's kind of hovering there, and then it falls back in and tries to fly back out, and it's like, I'm gonna go back into the bar, man. You can imagine to them, it's like probably the highest nectar they've ever gotten,
Oh, yeah.
They can't fly really straight for a few minutes afterwards. So they go, I kind of like that. And you'll see 4 or 5 of them inside these are carnation poppies. These aren't buttercups. These are like very complicated peony looking flowers.
Mhm.
Most beautiful, one of these beautiful flowers I've ever grown.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Oh my, yeah, like awestruck kind of stuff. And at the bottom, if you're looking up from the bottom, there's a bright purple cross that meets where the stem goes up.
Oh,
It's
cool.
a cross on the
Bright
bottom of the
purple.
flower.
Ah,
Now, that says a lot to me.
mm.
What would a plant with a cross help with?
Pollination.
Think meta view, think bigger view. What is the cross a symbol of? Well, I mean, there's
Is
a,
it upside down?
deeper
or
than that.
Upright.
All right.
it's a symbol of duality. It's an old symbol of yin and
Yeah.
yang, duality.
Oh, okay. I didn't really think of that.
Yeah, it's an old symbol of duality. So you think about it, then is there another representation in the West, or what the Chinese were calling yin and yang? We've been dumbed down, folks. They sacked Alexandria 3,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or 700 years ago, whenever they sacked it. And a lot of the history of the world was destroyed in that ransacking. We've been fed a distorted history.
Well, then they
Yeah.
burned it.
Yeah, they burned all the history and all the old magic archives and alchemy. And
Rewrite it.
I've been trying for thousands of years. I mean, Royal Lee, the founder of Standard Process, they burned him to the ground twice because he had some really serious stuff. As I've told you guys, the best nutrition knowledge from my research of the last 100 years came from about 1910 to about 1950. And everything since then has been plagiarized and repeated and copied. There hasn't been much new in the last 60, 70 years that I can see.
And hidden and lied about.
Hidden and lied to and gone backwards, what we've done. Yeah. These men back then, these women back then, and they were fighters and they weren't as dumbed down as we are. And they knew, and Royal Lee knew, and so they burned him to the ground twice. But guess why we have all of the information that he put out there? Because of people caring
Yeah.
Oh, and carrying it on.
and saving and coming back together and archiving. And the truth is never going to go away.
Did it happen to Weston Price too? Did his stuff get burned down?
Price wasn't politically vocal like Lee was. Jensen wasn't either. But Harry Hoxsey was, and they took him out. This is the Hoxsey cancer formula.
Well, he locked up his clinics. The FBI came in and locked them up.
Oh yeah, Hoxsey was very vocal.
Yeah,
He was calling out the medical people.
he had to finally move to Mexico to
You know,
practice.
yeah. That's why Gerson's down there. That's why Max Gerson's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
That's why Gerson Clinic's down there
That's right.
in Tijuana. Because Jensen, he had a whole Royal Lee and Jensen had a whole flour mill thing, and Jensen had a retreat center out here in California, and Royal Lee was selling he was the first real good flour mill. Lee did. So Jensen and him were partnering, and where's Bernard Jensen's retreat center now? It's gone. Powers that be took it.
Where was it?
Somewhere in Southern California. He was really into the warm weather down there, but he was also like Yogananda. He liked the 1,000 to 3,000 foot elevation. So he wasn't down in the lowlands of LA. He was up more in the mountains, up a little bit, but I don't remember where. Yeah. 9:20. Okay. I think what I'm supposed to end with. Oh, so the depressant things, you can have a depressant that sort of depletes the body, or you can have a depressant that might nourish the body. So one of my, like this Orchex thing, this vitamin E thing is a little bit like, wow, we might be helping us rest a little more, because if we're using oxygen more efficiently, we might breathe better at night.
That'd be good.
You know, it's one of my theories. And so alcohol is kind of a depressant by default, but you go into like, so poppy is a numbing, I don't care plant. It's the plant that you should not give to a narcissist because it makes them more narcissistic. It's the plant that I worked out through personal use that the plant told me and my experiences with it. The best experience I ever had on Papaver somniferum, I won't say what its real name is. The best experience I've had on Papaver somniferum from Afghanistan is there was a head growing and I just cut the head off, and it was a full 30 grams. And that's the upper limit for the fresh plant, is 30 grams, a whole ounce. That's a low level of toxicity, folks. You did 30 grams of, that's 30,000 milligrams. If you did that much opium, you would be dead. So I was telling a client about that. She goes, well, we're trying to get this girl of pancreatitis. This hospital's killing this. Well, she's a young lady, but, and so they've been giving her opioids. And I said, well, I got the poppy, and I've got people that have been through chemo with it and helped their pain. So I know it works, but it's well known that the opioids shut down digestion. So you give a pancreatitis case opioids. It's like, are you retarded? Because they're shutting down her digestion while they're trying to fix it. But she's in so much pain, she's asking for it. So the doctor's stuck. So I wouldn't call opium a depressant, especially opium poppy. I would call it sedating as a secondary effect of being numb and a little isolated from the world. So I did this tea with it. I chopped it up and poured boiling water over it and drank this whole tea, and it didn't taste half bad. And I went outside and sat in the garden, kind of like this garden. I had a little mountain mound. I sat by there and looked at the poppies. And after an hour of musing, I realized I didn't care about anything. And I was like, this is why they smoke opium. And I had a really hard day caring for people and gotten pooped on a bunch of times. And I realized, like, this is the perfect medicine for a caregiver at the end of a hard day. This is like the best Miller time ever. Because if you care too much, then it'll just get you a little bit more of that repent energy. Like, I need to keep this energy for me. Because repent means turn it around, back to yourself. One of its meanings. So that was my greatest discovery, was I rarely use the plant because I had a scary experience. I was so good with Tylenol codeine when I broke my neck. I never used it. I used it like 3 or 4 times. And I told my mom to throw the prescription out because it was that good. I mean, it was crazy fun. And I'm not an addictive type, but I knew, like, oh, so I used weed instead. I was
That's
straight.
not addictive for you at all.
I was straight until 21. And my brother was coming into the house with a halo brace and bong hitting me. And finally, I just surrendered. I was like, you can understand. Will grew up with these people. So I have 4 surfers around me, smoking me out in my own living room. And there was nowhere to go. So I just had to take it. Welcome to being a Santa Cruz surfer. You see, he knows. You got the grin. Oh boy. So yeah, then the thing with cannabis is not inherently addictive, because if you don't have it, you don't urine. But if you got it around, I was talking to some friends about it the other day, it's just so fun to enhance. And I'm an enhancer. But I've had girlfriends accuse me of, why do you have to enhance everything? You know my answer is? What do you think? Why not? You know, there's mountain climbing, all the mountains in San Luis Obispo I climb. Like, why are you doing that? Because they're there.
Yeah.
Because you can. Because you can. Okay, so there's a few others I probably want to list here that are level 2. You don't want to take daily. Passion flower is another one. Kind of effective for some people, passion flower. And if you're doing these fresh, you want the purple passion flower leaf, not the red flowered variant. I've spoken about this a few times, highly cautionary. Because I was the guy that you had to prove it to me. And my teacher said, don't do the tea with the red flowered passion flower. I lived in a house with a red flowered passion flower. So what did I do? Had tea with the leaf of the red flowered passion flower. Guess what happened to Craig that night? Didn't sleep all night. It's not sedating. It was a poison. I was poisoned all night thinking.
Mm.
Went back to my teacher kissing his feet. Thank you for telling me and warning me. I'm an idiot. You know. Valerian. Kava is an interesting one. Kava will enhance sleep because it has some of the similar actions as alcohol. But what some people miss that when you take the tablet of kava is there's 3 effects, and you miss the first effect when you don't taste it. And the first effect is euphoria. And I believe that's the dopamine part. The standard process people have scientifically analyzed this, and they've isolated that it causes a dopamine surge, which is the same thing that happens during climax of orgasm.
Yeah, chill.
Or suck on it. Suck on it. And then those phytochemicals go up, they gas off into the brain, and there's this euphoria, and that will kind of settle into the relaxed sociability. That's what kava used to be used for, in Polynesia, for social circles. But what they were doing was they were chewing up the root, getting their saliva, and then throwing it into a big pot and boiling it. So all their DNA was mixed together to further cause a social connection. That's how I've always liked to use it, but you won't see that going on at kava bars.
No.
Hey, let's mix our DNA and our saliva. Ew, germs. I'm like, it's boiling for hours. There's no germs left. You know. We're going to talk about skullcap, talk about poppy. Oh, catnip and damiana, 2 we can talk about as hypnotic narcotics that also have some sedating effects after the narcosis passes. I have so much catnip growing, Deanna. I've been like, I try these, like I'll literally will fill this jar up with catnip fresh and pour boiling water over and have a super strong catnip tea. And I feel like I'm drunk. It's the greatest discovery of my life. So I've been studying it a bit more. And it's like, wow, we could add honey and lemon to that and then make it into a probiotic fizzy beverage and call it like a beer, you know? I must have cat energy because I definitely feel loopy on the thing. And so I have catnips that have volunteered all over the property, and I have a gopher problem. So guess what? There's now, I'm seeing these cats are, here's one cat, he comes up to it and he kind of plays with it and chews on it. And then this other one comes over, and there's one over the ground in the front yard. He was rolling on it, and he would eat it and then look up at the birds and go back down. And they're just so varied in how they respond to it. It's like, it's an entity to them, you know? I don't know what they're getting out of it, but there must be some, they must be seeing like a spirit.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Well, they see spirits. Cats see spirits. They do, and they
Yeah.
protect humans from spirits. I got friends who are sensitive that way, and they see things and can relay it to the right sensitive people. It's really cool. So yeah, I think that's what it looks like because our cat destroyed the catnip we brought home. It's doing the exact same thing. And going out, like, completely flipping all over it, and chasing her tail, and just come back and she's like sits on it. Looks really it's so funny.
My cat's 16 years old, and she acts like she's a 5-month-old kitten.
It's so cute.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's the
I'm gonna get a cat
rejuvenator.
now. I'm just gonna try this out. Oh, it's a
you can take
blast.
some home. I'll cut you a piece on the way home.
I don't have a cat though.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to
shit.
get a cat.
Okay,
But it's all the
cat,
better.
okay.
They like it in the live
That's
plant
so
best. I
cute.
think.
You what?
They like it in the live plant best.
So here's the deeper part about, yeah, they do.
They'll destroy it.
It's a mint.
Yeah, they don't care.
So
about
catnip is a mint, so it helps digestion.
it. Mm.
Catnip causes diaphoresis, so it's good for colds and flus because it facilitates sweating. So it has a lot. So think about it. If you got a kid that's whining with the flu and the aches and the pains, well, I'm going to give that kid catnip, lemon balm, and maybe shiso, and that kid's going to calm right down.
Mm.
Best herb for kids, lemon balm, by far, because it tastes good and it's sedating slightly, good for viruses, it's specific antiviral, and it's gentle, what you want for a kid. The leaves and the flowers, yeah.
Mm.
I've got some growing and I have a few starts popping up. I didn't have a banner crop with it like the other house. Yeah, I might come dig some up. You know where it's growing though, is you go up to, if you want to dig some up, it's out at Land of the Medicine Buddha area. It's out in, what's the state park next to Land of the Medicine Buddha? Why is it not coming?
Oh, well.
Nicene Mark.
Nicene Marks is out there. You'll see it in any forested area. Fall Creek's got it. Big Basin's got it. Henry Cow has it. But you gotta be down by the water right now to get it. And it's great. You can, it's easy to identify because you go rub the leaf, smell it, and if it smells like lemon, you got it.
So lemon balm, catnip, and skullcap for kids, is that what you said?
You can do skullcap. It might be too strong, might be
Oh,
too
it's
sedating for
okay.
some kids. Lemon balm, shiso,
She's
the red shiso leaf. Because that has a shiso leaf has 40% of the disinfectant strength of formaldehyde. That was a Japanese study years ago.
Wow.
There's 40% of the disinfecting power of formaldehyde, because that's from the Umabashi plum study. Yeah, I've got a book printed in 1955 on the Umabashi plum by a Japanese medical doctor. And he's listed 28 medical effects of Umabashi plum. That's why I use it for the last 25 years, because it works. Pancreatitis case, that's the first thing going in her body is Umabashi plum ginger tea. Because it kills bugs and gets digestion back. But that's neither here nor there. Back to these depressants. And there's a regulator I should talk about is St. John's wort. Is not viewed as a sedative or a depressant, but it will help someone be regulated between the two because their psychic boundaries will be better. So St. John wort is a great plant for people that feel like they get possessed, bad psychic boundaries. A lot of people's depression that they say St. John's wort helps with, I believe, is because they've got entities in them that are depressed and have taken over their consciousness. It's not even their depression. And St. John's wort is interesting because when you make a tincture from the yellow flowers, the tincture turns red like the blood. It's the oddest thing. Just stuff these jars full of yellow flowers. I've got photographs and little videos of it, like within 2 hours in vodka. The yellow flower the liquid turns bright red.
Wow.
It's true alchemy. Why would a yellow flower turn red pigment when you add a solvent? Anybody know why?
Something to do with St. John. Why is it
No,
called
the
St.
active
John?
ingredient, the Latin name for St. John's wort is Hypericum perforatum,
Oh,
like perforated. Hypericum perfor. So the active ingredient is hypericin, and hypericin is red. So somehow, when you extract the yellow flowers, the yellow pigment goes away, and the red from the hypericin comes out.
Wow.
I just like it because of the action of watching this yellow thing turn red in 2 or 3 hours. What is going on there?
Bright red? What kind of red?
Bright red. I'll show you the tincture.
Wow.
The standard process, standardized, is like brown. It's so red. But I prefer right now, if anybody wants to go, actually, I'm going to go this weekend. The St. John's wort is going to be gone. I was up in Auburn a few weekends ago, and it had already bloomed out there because of the lack of rain late in the year. And generally, it's a mid to late June plant harvesting. St. John's Day, June 21st, is the day you generally harvest it. That's what that's about. And so I think I'm going to go up tomorrow, the next day, or Monday morning, and I have a spot up on the summit on Skyline Boulevard. It's been built upon, but I want to say goodbye. And there's a few other spots I'll be able to get a little bit. So I'd rather use St. John's wort grown locally in our local environment versus St. John's wort grown somewhere else. And why would I want to do that?
So that it's more accustomed to you because it's local, right?
It's made from the same 4 elements, earth, air, water, and fire, that I'm in, versus 4,000 miles away. And Michael Tierra did a study once. He was coming up from LA, and they bought a big thing of oranges down in San Diego. And they ate an orange every hour of their drive north. And he said the further they got, the more side effects and symptoms they had out of that climate into the colder. Is that interesting?
Yeah.
What kinds of effects?
What I get when I overeat oranges are allergy symptoms.
Really?
It's too alkaline. My body burns through the acids, and then I'm too alkaline, and then that's the major problem with any chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, asthma, or hay fever. You've got to avoid sweet citrus. You have to avoid it. So my whole life made sense when I started avoiding citrus, because I saw metabolically, my poor mother was always giving me orange juice when I got a cold, and orange juice is mucus forming. especially the dead stuff
Oh,
we used to buy in the
especially
cartons, you know, that concentrated bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
That's absolute poison.
It's pure sugar. And so what's the antidote to orange is the peel, is anti-mucus. So, you know, you're better off boiling the orange peels for a cold than you are eating the orange.
Citrus peel tea is awesome.
That's not
Now,
bad.
now I just heard a thing that you can make quercetin out of citrus peel tea.
Yeah, you can make the quinine out of citrus peels.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
opens the cell for, no, it counteracts the action of the virus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw a grapefruit peel recipe on the web. I think I actually downloaded it, so we could
Yeah,
talk
but
about
it's
that.
any of it.
Lemon and
Some
grapefruit,
say
yeah.
lemon and grapefruit,
Yeah, I
but
know
I've
that.
been doing
That's
all the
good.
citrus peel teas for
Mhm.
years once I figured out that's the way I could make my marmalade.
But they had a specific recipe you added, it was water and something else. I don't know what the special magic ingredient was, but I'll let you guys know because I got the,
I just got the recipe too, I
Pardon?
don't remember.
For tonic water?
yeah, I think there was another
Maybe
ingredient
if it's tonic
for
water.
tonic water.
But when it's for the quercetin,
No, I'll look at it. I'll show you guys next week. Somebody remind me. We're gonna finish this depressants and herbally, I've gone down most of my list. Major one. I'm thinking about the garden, what's missing. Catnip was that was a great comment though. It's so fascinating. Poppy, the nettles. There's a lot of plants you just won't know. Like if you take nettles, you're not gonna feel anything really.
why not?
Unless you put it with bacon.
Unless you have diarrhea.
Oh, it helps diarrhea now?
It tends to, it's a little slightly astringent, and so it'll help diarrhea. Women would see it if they had anemia, because it raises your
Oh, yeah.
iron
metals is for
levels
that.
and
Yeah.
blood levels of
Mhm.
because of the chlorophyll, you know. Okay, I think I'm gonna end that. And so the big red flag of caffeine then is burning up your yin and drying yourself out. So the stages what you could proceed on is you get if you get off caffeine and you can't have a bowel movement without caffeine, then generally your bowels are probably too dry, and that's a red flag. It's one of the first stages I see. People, they have the dependency for their bowel movements. The next thing you're probably going to see is you'll see your skin's a little drier, especially the old man, old lady skin. People get they're our age, a little crinkly, little crinkly skin kind of stuff. Right? People get facelifts and stuff.
Baby skin.
So that can be another byproduct. Dark urine would be another sign. If your urine is chronically dark, then you're probably looking at dehydration because there's too many solutes in the urine. Then it'll move up to, let's see, I think dry mouth is first, then dry nose, and then dry eyes. It works its way up, I believe.
Mm.
Who did a good paper on this was he was our Oakland practitioner. He's still the rep, or he was the rep up in Oakland. Got his name.
The real tall guy.
Yeah, with the dark hair.
Yeah.
Got his
that's
name.
Yeah,
Wanna give him credit.
He's working with Justin now on that new formula, right?
Oh, are they with the Duco?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. and-
Press just emailed a group of us about biotics, and my response was, what happened to SP? I'm happy to use adjunct products, but I'm not leaving SP for anybody. I got thousands of miracles with that company. I mean, all that change. Oh, try da-da-da. Like, dude, you were one saying whole food back in the day. Now you're working for a synthetic company. Dude, what the hell? Anyways, it's just politics in the company. Me and Deanna are privy to. There's a relaxing fraction of the B vitamins that is good food for sleep, and that's called cataplex G.
Oh, it
And-
never made me tired though.
No, it's not supposed to make you tired. It just facilitates a deeper, stronger sleep and a relaxation in the nervous system. It can promote sleep. If I take 6 before bed, I sleep really sound. But it's not a sedative per se. It can be.
You take how many?
6 before bed.
Six.
Yeah, there's an autoimmune protocol that it's a part of also because there's brain desiccant in that product, raw brain. And so what you do is you take the brain protomorphogen, the cataplex G, and then ribonucleic acid it's like a concussion brain, autoimmune brain protocol. People that have had traumatic brain injuries like myself.
What about strokes?
I would do that protocol. So why would you do ribonucleic acid? Interesting product. I love that product because nobody even knows about it. Why would you use something? So ribonucleic acid, let's talk about it. So ribonucleic acid is a product that a lot of companies have, right? Standard process is not unique. And they get a special type of nutritional yeast. And they extract the ribonucleic acid out of the nutritional yeast. So there's specific strains they grow. There's some strains they grow that poop selenium. High selenium yeast. Chromium, high chromium yeast. That's what standard process is. They've got a high chromium yeast, high selenium yeast, but their high selenium product is Cataplex E. It's only freaking 11 milligrams. Give me a break. I think it's so effective, you only need a little bit, their form. That's why the magnesium and Easy Mag's like 10 milligrams per freaking tablet. Are you kidding me? But it's probably just pops right in the cell, So ribonucleic acid is in this brain formula because ribonucleic acid is generally used to complete incomplete protein synthesis. Nettles used to be used that same way back in the day because nettles are rich in nitrogen. Nitrogenous products are proteinaceous products. So if you were a vegan, then I tell my clients that are vegans, I go, if your lab work doesn't look so hot, I go, you need to take ribonucleic acid because it's made from nutritional yeast. So it's a vegan complete protein thing. But you use it in this case because you have these glycated end products in the brain and all these foreign proteins around and lysed cells. And that's one of the reasons we have an immune system is to patrol our body for lysed, LYSSSCD cells. You don't want thyroid DNA ending up in your testicles, do you?
I certainly don't.
You certainly don't want, so what do you think endometriosis is? What do you think endometriosis is? That's uterine cells being made in the endometrium. Very painful. I had a few women with that. Oh, man.
Both my sisters.
Horrible. So what that is then the uterine cells have been attacked somehow and exploded open, and the DNA works its way up into the endometrium. And the endometrium goes, oh, I'll start making uterine cells.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now, Stuart White was talking about this back in the day, and some of the standard process people were studying this, and they believed there was a connection with the spleen, why this was happening. And so the spleen protomorphogen is really good for endometriosis. One of my little things I've discovered. And they isolated, well, God, clinical pearl, I better avoid it. No, I'll just say. So there's 3 products in the standard process line that they don't really know what they do initially, but they have trophic or systemic effects. One of them is the spleen desiccate, so raw spleen extract. It seems to have effects that affect the whole body. The chlorophyll pearl standard process mix, that's a fat soluble chlorophyll that has hormonal precursors in it from the fat. And the final one is called fortified tillandsia B12. And tillandsia, its common name is Spanish moss that grows out in the Everglades in Florida. And Royal Lee, being the man he was, he studied it, and he was like, people that regularly consumed it regularly were centenarians. So the tillandsia made its way into a lot of the products in the standard process product line, much like how I use gynostemma in my herbal line. It makes everything better. And so he talked to these old centenarians, and he's like, okay, but so fortified tillandsia apparently has trophic effects on the whole system too. How can I tie that with a depressant? So, okay, I got it. So there's a couple of plants that they'll calm the system down, specifically the heart. And one of them is linden flower of the large linden tree, and the other is Schisandra berry. So they have trophic effects, but they kind of sedate an overactive, inflamed, and heartbroken person. Linden flower is in the traditional medicinals cold and flu formula PM. The AM has yarrow, and the PM has linden flower. The other ingredient is elderflower, is the main one in both. So they choose elderflower for a reason, right? It's very strongly antimicrobial. I will say it again, I say it all the time. You don't use elderberry during an active infection. Never. Why? Use elderflower during the active infection. You use the elderberry in between illnesses. That's how it works. But why would I say that? And I just throw it out there for no reason. I mean, I could. I could be egotistical.
Elderberries are popular.
I could be a know-it-all.
People made a big deal of elderberry extract, but
What is the energy of berry versus the energy of the elder flower? Let's talk about the actions again. That's what I'm basing my.
Well, the flower attracts the bees and whatever too.
No, what's the action of what you want? Do you want your pores opening up when you have a cold or closing down? You want your pores open when you have a cold to sweat out the toxins.
Right.
Berry energy shuts down your pores because it's sour. So it's the wrong action. It's got the right ingredients, the elderberry does, but it's the wrong action. You're telling your pores, shut down and don't sweat. That's why you do the flower energy. That's why you do catnip, peppermint, ginger. They all facilitate the pores opening. Do you see berry in there anywhere? Berries are not for an active cold. Maybe as a little tiny bit in the formula, but not during an active infection. It's like we use Imuplex in the standard process line in between colds to build up the immune system, but you use the acute product, Conjuplex, when it's acute. They're totally different products.
Is it Rachel? Oh, hi.
We're still recording, Laura, so I'm gonna
Okay,
finish this up. So depressant. Let's finish up just some last minute remedies of caffeine. So one way you can remedy caffeine is have your minerals, like your salty water, your mineral rich water after you drink it. Vitamin C and sodium are going to restore the adrenals. So the adrenal cocktails generally, if you put high quality salt and water and lemon juice, that's the vitamin C and the sodium is going to restore the adrenals. You definitely want to make sure you're taking more magnesium with caffeine. It's undesirable for a lot of people though, because the magnesium will also increase the bowel movements, which the caffeine already did. So it's a little uncomfortable to take magnesium after caffeine. So you might want to wait 12 to 24 hours to do that. Because if you already got loose bowels, then it's going to make that worse for some people. Probably the single most important herb you could do in the evening after having coffee in the morning or caffeine in the morning would be ashwagandha, in my opinion, ashwagandha romania, because they lower the elevated cortisol, and ashwagandha tonifies the adrenals. And then romania specifically is the yin that you lost out on, to replenish the log. And then if you can, get a rest break after caffeine. If you have a lot of fire like I do, then if I don't work out and get my aggressions out after caffeine, then I don't sleep well because I feel there's this energy that's burning inside me that I should have gotten out into the world. And just that's an FYI. People don't think about this, but I remind people, activity means good rest, and good rest means good energy the next day. And it's a self-fulfilling cycle. So if you don't sleep well, then you have low energy the next day and you don't want to work out. And you don't work out, then you go to bed, with stimulants in your body. You don't burn them off. So a little bit of activity after caffeine is advisable. And also realizing that when you're in a hyperkundalini state, meaning you have some kind of feelings in today's world, it'd be like centered up from here above, hot flashes, headaches, potentially anxieties that feel centered up here. I get what's called I'll get a hot flash storm, I'll call it, and this heat will come up into my head, especially on too much caffeine. So caffeine is what they call, this woman in the biology of Kundalini calls a lowered Kundalini state, when you're in between and you're feeling kind of depressed. And I was telling you that this morning, if I think of a good caffeinated day and I have a low morning, it's like, so the best thing to do would be just to think of the day, go smell some coffee beans, and then move on with your day, right? That would be ideal. You just have the placebo. It kind of happened today, and then I went for the pu'er anyways, just to see. And it was 2 tea bags, there's 2 grams of tea, and I used to be on 12 grams of tea, but I still felt like it was a little too much caffeine. What was the other thing I did today that was helpful? Oh yeah, and then if you can, to do a little exercise and then a little rest break, as Laura's and I have talked about, the little 15-minute, I used to call it a craggy, C-R-A-G-G-Y, a craggy nap, because I'm Craig, and a craggy nap, and then you feel kind of restored. And that happened today. I did yoga for a half hour, got my aggressions out, laid down for 20 minutes, and it's a very strange phenomenon. Like when I meditate like that and then fall asleep, there's always a cue in whatever dream I'm in that I'm about to wake up. Like somebody closed the door on the one today. It's like this door closed, and then I knew I was going to wake up, and then I woke up, and that's great. So minerals, fat is hydrating, by the way, too. That's why butter for me is my ultimate hydrator. Very, very hydrating. But you got to be able to process it too.
That organic grass-fed only,
And raw?
raw.
Ideally, all of the above, yeah.
So is that because it's the lower deuterium versus regular butter that you get, it stores higher deuterium, which is going to displace the hydrogen, so you cannot hydrate, right?
What's deuterium?
It's a hydrogen isotope that basically it prevents you from hydrating properly. If the ratio of deuterium is too high, then you're not really absorbing the water.
Why is it in butter? Regular
Why is deuterium, why is grass-fed butter lower in deuterium? I don't know.
So there's a whole, what I was doing was empirical studies back with the Bikram people in the 15 years ago. And so the downtown studio here, Village Yoga, I was giving talks there, and that was the big concern was hydration. Now you're doing Bikram yoga, and I would experiment with various things afterwards, and the best recovery was a whole quart of whole raw milk after the Bikram. And I'd still be thirsty after a whole quart. And I'm like, wow. And water with salt, nothing worked as good as the raw milk. And then I started researching saturated fats and some of the old Weston Price work. And it definitely, the quality is important, because I believe when you start refining fats, butter fats, slight exception because they're a short chain, you start refining fats, you end up damaging the fat, and because all fat is made of in its pure form is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So she's talking about this form of hydrogen, and nature has a way of eliminating people who do too many shortcuts. And that's one of them right there. Over refined butter, you're going to have trouble. And the last mystery we'll end on tonight is the mystery of the butyrates, butyrate, and how our gut they measure them in our gut. They're stool samples. Why do they do that? What is butyrates?
It's in butter.
Butyric acid.
Right.
Butyric acid.
So our gut microbes both eat butyrates and they poop out butyrates. What does that tell you about the universality of butter on the planet? Every culture was eating butter. Yak butter, camel butter, cow butter, sheep butter, goat butter, horse butter. What else we got? Bat butter,
Pig butter.
pig butter.
Yeah, better.
So think about it. It was the ultimate unrefined fat. Churn your cream and you have this unrefined fat. So we evolved with it. How do I know that? Because it's in our gut bacteria. Coming in or not?
Oh.
I got a recorder going, so come in or not, please.
Oh, you just dropping? Yep. Okay, thanks. I don't know that.
So that's how we're going to end it. And I think that butter was one of the ways that people would hydrate back in the day. I don't have any water. I'll just lick on some butter here. Yeah, you have the stories about beer and wine when the water wasn't as pure. People would drink beer and wine. And that's great, but I don't think that was going on.
Not that hydrating, really.
Not that hydrating. It's not hydrating. That's the thing. People would drink it thinking, oh, and you wonder why do I have edema the next day? And all the salted meat and alcohol during the winter in the olden days, cold Scottish winters. And you wonder why does grandma have so much edema in her legs? Well, you had salty meat and wine all night. What the fuck? Wondering why. So the moral of the story is caffeine is if you can't avoid it, then it's probably good. And if you use it, then use it consciously. As
People
one
put
of
butter in coffee makes it better for them, right?
that's the butter in the coffee thing right there, right?
Right.
There's the butter in the coffee right there.
Right,
See,
comes right
it's less
back.
dehydrated. The bulletproof guy.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, they've asked me.
I like poking fun at him though because he's full of hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah.
I've actually emailed him and contacted him and he's like,
Does he contact you back?
he did defend himself with one of my accusations. I said, so why are you promoting something that's causing adrenal fatigue? Well known. And that was my final retort to one of his things about how great his coffee was. I was like, it's not, dude. And there's no way you can make a poison healthy.
Yeah.
And that was my point. And he never got back with me after that. But I made my point. You can't, you got to say it for what it is. And I tell people, Dale Pendell in his book about all the pharmacological herbs and entheogens, he says, we all have a poison path. So choose your poisons carefully. You got a poison, I got a poison, you got a poison. We all got poisons we like. And that's why you get a good variety of things and you have the antidote to the poison by getting a lot of variety. And we're sorry John T never made it tonight, but we're sending you, if you do watch this, John T, we're sending you love. And any questions you want on recording, anybody?
No, we covered. Thank you.
I went deep, okay, goodbye.